Senate Bill 1027 would change some of the aspects of how a citizen's statewide petition and referendum could be conducted. Oklahoma is one of a few states that has the ability of citizens to pass a petition to put a question on the ballot. We refer to them as state questions, and they'll get a number, state question such and such. And so 1027 changes that by giving the Secretary of State more authority to cause people that are wanting to circulate a petition to either change their language or maybe deny it altogether. And that's the real big problem with it. It has another aspect to it that requires only specific amounts of signatures to be gathered from certain counties, the biggest counties in the state, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, the counties they reside in. There are some that complain that the rural people kind of take a back seat to the urban folks because the populations are so much bigger in the urban areas. They go there to get the signatures. I don't know if it's a real good, solid argument to make for changing the law, because there are those that think that's unconstitutional, that there's some issues with it by changing it like that. The problem the rest of us have is giving that additional language to the Secretary of State so that they can actually slow people down or stop them altogether from circulating a petition in the first place. So there's an effort by some that never have liked these citizens' petitions. They'd like to do away with the law altogether, but that would be very unpopular to come out like that and claim that. So what they do is they bring legislation like this from time to time to change it a little bit at a time to where it doesn't have as much effectiveness as it once did. And I believe that's what's going on here. Is this bill has popped up out of nowhere. The proponents of the bill claim that it's necessary because people are confused when they go sign a petition that people are circulating because of the language they use on that petition. Now, what happens when we want to go circulate a petition? If you and I wanted to go do that, we would take our language that's going to be on the document in which people are going to sign, the language that's going to be at the top of that, to tell them what they're signing, what their subject matter is. In the current law right now, regardless of this bill, if it passes or not, the current law already requires that go to the Secretary of State for their review. And then there's some other things that happen after that. So you take it to the Secretary of State. This is without this Senate Bill 1027. You take it to the Secretary of State. He approves it. Then you go begin the circulation and collection of signature process. You have 90 days to do that. Then it's going to go back to the Secretary of State. He verifies that the signatures are appropriate. And then it'll go to the Attorney General at some point for them to create what's called the ballot language, the actual language that's on ballot. That's the only thing I've ever heard anybody complain about, that the ballot language that the Attorney General's office, which is written by lawyers, it's kind of gets legalese sometimes, is that's difficult for some people to understand. And I think it really just depends on the subject matter. I've never heard very many complaints at all. The point here is that there's not an outcry for a change in this law. There's not an outcry for giving more power to a political appointee, the Secretary of State, to address this alleged problem. So who's doing this for what reason is the ultimate question. It's such an important issue, and there's so many people that care about this on all sides of the political spectrum. What they should do is have an interim study and not just pass this law real quickly, because a lot of people are going to be really upset about it. Here's what happens in a legislative body frequently is you'll have something like this come forward, and then you'll have the language in the bill like I've overviewed, language that gives the Secretary of State more power. Well, how do they do that? They say things like the Secretary of State needs to verify that the gist, G-I-S-T, is clear or sufficient or some language like that. And so when you give that person that kind of power, that's a matter of opinion, really. It's not real clear. And the objection that we've given with this particular bill. This additional language and power for the Secretary of State is vague at best. There's no definition in the bill that says this is how this is supposed to be defined and applied. So it's given a lot of leeway to the Secretary of State, again, who is not elected by the people. It's a political appointee, and they could have a lot of influence on this to cause people to have to go hire a lawyer to fight somebody in court or something like that. It's very disturbing to a lot of people. No question it takes power away from the people. The author and others that are behind this are claiming it does not. And I hope maybe they're right. If it passes, I hope that's the case, of course. But I don't think that that will be the case. I think in the future it'll be used to stop efforts that some don't like. And that's not the law. That's not the purpose of the law. And we don't want that to happen to this law, because you're effectively eliminating the law when you do that, when you take it to this point. Yeah, the one other thing that people need to know, there's two things. One is that we, along with others, are already preparing to circulate a petition for certain issues. For example, one thing that I fought all the years that I was in the legislature for a really long time is the ability that some states give to the leaders in their legislative bodies, referred to as the Speaker of the House or the Speaker pro tem in the Senate or a committee chairman. The power that they let them have this power to just deny another duly elected member the right to have their bill heard. And it's a big problem. It's gotten worse and worse and worse over the years. The reason that happens is because there are moneyed interest, we refer to as special interest and donors, that give a lot of money to the legislature, individuals and as groups and PACs. And they are the ones that increasingly have more and more power over the legislature. People ask a lot of times, why does the legislature do this? Or why don't they do this? Et cetera, et cetera. Well, the reason is because there's other players behind the scenes that are not out in the open that are influencing those legislators. And so they know this is coming along with other ones that they may not like or agree with. They don't want their power taken away. What we're going to do is we're going to stop that practice of denying one duly elected member becoming a speaker or a chairman of a committee because somebody gives him that title. And then he denies other members who were elected just like he was or she was to even have a bill heard, even have a hearing. And so I feel strongly that this is one of the big motivating factors for Senate Bill 1027. It's bad law. It needs to be slowed down at minimum and let people understand what's going on and look at this instead of try to pass it real quick and cram it down everybody's throat, which is basically what's going on. Yep. The second thing is people need to call their state representative. It's already passed out of the Senate. They need to call their state representative and tell them to vote no on the bill or move that it be changed to an interim study for this coming off season so people can really take a good hard look at this.